welcome to the A-Loft in Dallas and our first Pharos Regional User Conference. We are particularly excited to have you with us because over the next couple of days, we want to take the opportunity to, for us all to get a chance to get to know each other a little bit better. From my standpoint, in the next few minutes, I really want to share with you three things. One is an understanding of Pharos and the passion and interests that drive us. The second is how we see our responsibility to the world, which includes all of you as customers and partners. And three is to share some of the principles that we believe will drive the future of enterprise printing. Lessons we have learned along the way, if you will. We all in this room share a common aspiration. Whether we know it or not, we have a significant impact on each other. And this user conference gives us an opportunity to have that impact be more meaningful. Pharos has about 1 in 4 of our U.S. employees here in the conference with us today. And Scott mentioned that you all represent one metric, a little bit less than 10% of our U.S. higher education marketplace. I'll give you another metric, which is that you all represent over 550 years of software experience with Pharos as well. So not insignificant. Between the Pharos people here, as well as our partners and all of you as customers, I believe we have everything we need in order to make our time together both fun and educational. And we do want to keep it fun. So we're glad you've come. When I was thinking about my opening remarks a couple of weeks ago, my father-in-law interrupted me. He does that from time to time. He turns 80 this year, and he wanted to show me a picture on his iPhone of the small single-engine airplane that he wants to buy. That's him, and that's the plane. Now, mind you, my father-in-law is not now, nor has he ever been a pilot. He likes this plane partly because it takes limited qualifications to learn how to fly it. You can do it in a couple of weekends. I mentioned that he's maybe aging, but he's not crazy. However, the conversation reminded me just how much of our reality is self-created. How we view ourselves and how we view the world around us determines the choices we see, and it determines the options that are available to us. Many 80-year-olds, probably most 80-year-olds, are focused on life winding down, and they're looking at how they protect their reducing options as they're not able to get around as much and as well as they used to. My father-in-law, not surprising for those who know him, is not among that group. He's not thinking about how to protect his freedoms. He's continuing to think about how to expand them. Our worldview can say so much about us. At this conference, we want to share a little about how we see the world. We want to learn how you see it as well. So I encourage you not to think of this as a learning opportunity only. Think of it as a sharing opportunity as well. So let me start. I have a confession to make. Here in front of more than 100 customers, more than 20 partners, as well as Pharos employees, I have a confession. And my confession is this: I don't wake up every morning thinking about printing and how to make it smarter. There, I said it. It's not my passion in life to help you all save money by reducing how much you print. I'm glad I got that off my chest before this conference starts. Now, before you all go bolting for the doors asking for your money back, I want to share with you what we do spend our time thinking about. What does get our juices flowing in the morning. And I'm not any different from really the rest of the Pharos employees. It is not printing that gets us jazzed and excited every morning when we wake up. And I'm guessing that there are few people in this room, if any, who find their life's passion in paper and ink. But let me share with you in the next 20 minutes or so what we do spend our time thinking about, and why Pharos may be, just may be, the most important company in the world as it relates to the future of enterprise printing. So bear with me for a few moments, and we'll get to know each other a little bit better, and as I said, have some fun along the way. I've shared that printing is not my passion. But every morning for 13 years, I've been able to get out of bed and pursue my life passionately at Pharos. My passion, our passion as a company, is bigger than printing. Our passion is making a lasting and positive difference in the lives of everyone we touch, no matter the length of our touch. I had a life-changing revelation a number of years ago. It really doesn't matter on what field or endeavor I am working, what role I'm in, or what goal I pursue. The challenge in front of me at any given time, whether at work, at home, or anywhere else, is to be awake to what is going on in that moment, and to the choices that are in front of me, and the impact of those choices on myself and the world around me. My passion is to bring caring, learning, growth, and commitment to every moment. You can call it living mindfully. As I share with everyone with whom I work, if working at Pharos does not help us to be more mindful, and in so doing help us to be better people, more awake to the choices we make in the world around us, a healthier parent, citizen, sibling, friend, then either we, Pharos, need work or they do. Every situation we face, every obstacle we tackle, is an opportunity for us to pay attention. It's an opportunity for learning. It's an opportunity for growth. How we solve the smallest problems in front of us, which may or may not be print-related, shape how we tackle the largest. If they don't, then we're not paying attention. The field in which Pharos endeavors to excel is the intention to change the world's relationship with printing. Print has become one of the most habitual activities in the academic and business world. The average person prints 7 to 8 times per day. What else do we do once nearly every working hour? Not much. Sometimes I'll have that many cups of coffee, but I usually regret it. Pharos seeks to make print more mindful, to help the world become more aware to the printing choices we make, why we make them, and their impact on the world around us. In becoming more mindful, we also have the opportunity to open the door to more mindful ways to approach any situation we face, from how we write a letter to what time we get up in the morning. And in living mindfully, Pharos likes to approach the world with the belief that the best solutions come from a mindset of discovery. There is no intention on earth that cannot be enhanced by a mindset of discovery. Whether we are trying to put a person on Mars or cook a Thanksgiving meal, my mother and I can have the same ingredients, we can have the same recipe, we can even be working in the same kitchen. And I can pretty much guarantee you that you're going to enjoy her Thanksgiving meal more than you're going to enjoy mine. Why? Because she's a good cook, and I am not. At the end of the day, it's her years of experience in cooking, her mindful experience in the kitchen, and in other experiences in her life that make her a chef, which I am not. And the secret is that it's the chef, not the recipe, that determines whose cooking you will enjoy the most. This is one reason why I am blessed to be working at Pharos, because so many of my colleagues share this mindset of discovery with me. You can say it's part of our DNA. I'm shepherding the core belief that started 20 years ago by our founders in New Zealand, both of whom, along with our other 150 colleagues, remain committed to helping guide our future through discovery. Hopefully you all are here in this room because you share a similar belief. As you tackle situations and problems on your campus, in your environment, you are committed to learning, to discovering the best solutions, and in so doing to grow your ability to tackle any future endeavor in any field. We're here to grow ourselves as cooks, not to seek a recipe. The good news is that as you look around, you will see many colleagues who share the same challenges and many of the same objectives. Being here for the next couple of days is an opportunity for us to discover together the best way to tackle the problems and the world that confront us. Let me relate one such story of mindfulness as it relates to our world of printing. One of our clients, Coca-Cola, is often negatively viewed based on the fact that the production of their product, Coke syrup, uses fresh water, and a lot of it. This is something of which every Coke employee is aware. When we sought to change printing behavior at Coke, we shared another simple reality. It takes 12 ounces of water to make a piece of paper. In short, as we were working with Coke, and we started working with their employees, we together started delivering that message beyond just ourselves. It takes a Coke can of water to create a page of paper. Print two-sided or don't print at all. The results? Coke reduced paper usage and their impact on the environment by more than 60%. We can accomplish a lot by paying attention. Paul Hawken, entrepreneur, author, visionary, suggests that our planet is experiencing the greatest human movement the world has ever known. And it is a movement without any formal organization or leader. Perhaps the most common term for this movement is social responsibility. Among the things this means is millions of people working on behalf of strangers addressing such issues as climate change, poverty, deforestation, peace, water, hunger, human rights, and more. We do not need to be visionaries to recognize that our world calls for change. It is today and has been in history the challenge of all people to grow human consciousness through discovery and to bring to every moment the deepest respect, openness, caring, and commitment we can, both for our generation and all those that follow. If you're a Pharos employee, as I mentioned earlier, you can add fun to that list. Because if we aren't having fun while we're doing it, then something is wrong. All of us in this room are part of this movement, whether we approach it mindfully or not. I was reading recently about an entrepreneur that shared a similar commitment and belief to a mindset of discovery. Hennig, as he was nicknamed, was a prototypical entrepreneur, working on one challenge after another, one invention after another. After dabbling in chemistry, Hennig turned his attention to the invention of what he called smart mirrors. And these were mirrors that were able to permanently, rather than temporarily, capture the essence of what was caught in their reflection, and yet continue to function as mirrors, continue to over and over show people and reflect what was happening from day to day. So Hennig manufactured thousands of these smart mirrors. Never mind that they didn't work. He intended to sell them at a large European trade conference. But unfortunately, political and economic unrest led to the cancellation of the event. And Hennig was left near bankruptcy, stuck with an inventory of non-functioning smart mirrors and no longer an opportunity to sell them. So he did what many entrepreneurs do when faced with a shortage of cash. He turned to the private equity markets to raise some money. Hennig met up with an angel investor, a gentleman by the name of Johann Fust. Johann came to his aid. However, Fust was not sold on smart mirrors. So, in desperation, Hennig turned Fust onto his next invention, a document production system. The problem was that Hennig needed to invent many of the enabling technologies, including the manufacturing process, for his vision to work. He raised $300,000 from Fust to carry him through the 3-year process to both design and commercialize his product. And paranoid from earlier ventures, Hennig broke the development process down into independent steps and split it into different elements which he spread across different cities in Europe. Much like Steve Jobs, to keep his invention a secret until he was ready to hit the market. And I would like to tell you that his cautious and inventive nature paid off. Unfortunately, on the eve of his introduction, Fust, his investor, demonstrated the risk of partnership choices poorly made. Fust called in his note. The whole case ended up in court. And Fust ended up with Hennig's invention, along with his inventory and all of his production facilities. In the end, Hennig ended up with nothing save his experience and passion to see his invention succeed. This is a story that we've seen play out again and again in Silicon Valley, a story of ruthless capitalism. What makes this particular story somewhat unique is that it predated Silicon Valley by 550 years. As was the custom in his day, Hennig eventually took his name from his city of origin, and we know him as Johannes Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press. His invention did indeed change the world. First hailed as a device from the devil, since it took control of printing and knowledge transfer away from the church. It was then embraced by the church, who used the press to print and sell papal indulgences, absolution paid for on paper. The Catholic Church became the first Amazon, if you were. This enabled the church to pay for the building of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Some years later, however, Martin Luther's 95 Theses was printed using the same invention, taking down that same controlling hierarchy of the Catholic Church, using the same technology that Luther railed against earlier. Luther became the first best-selling author, the Stephen King of his day, with more than 300,000 copies of his 95 Theses sold in the first year of production. In the process of building his printing press, Gutenberg discovered flexible manufacturing lines predating Henry Ford. The concept of interchangeable parts, well before Eli Whitney, and created new breakthroughs in paper, ink, metals, manufacturing tolerances, and even set legal precedents in equity rights. His invention is credited with ushering in the modern world, freeing the growth of science, the Reformation, the creation of the middle class, and the Age of Enlightenment. From what I have learned of Johannes Gutenberg, however, I don't believe for a second that his goal was inventing the printing press. That was not the problem he was solving. He was trying to put an affordable Bible in every home. The printing press was a necessary step to achieve that. In that regard, he wasn't too far from Bill Gates, whose vision was not to become the richest man in the world, but rather to put a computer on every desktop. Windows was simply required in order to make computers usable by the masses. In the years after losing his business, Gutenberg took a radical turn and went open source. From his early days of being security conscious, he took all of his knowledge and all of his invention and learning and traveled around Europe, building print shops, print centers, and expanding the use of his invention. He benefited little himself, but he saw his invention flourish, and later his dream of easy access to Bibles became reality. 500 years later, Steve Jobs brought Gutenberg to the digital world as he translated one of the most influential inventions of the printing press, beautiful variable space fonts, to create the Lisa, the Mac, and today's highest valued company. Jobs was a student of the art of fonts and elegance in design, many of which dated back to shortly after Gutenberg's invention. Xerox and HP then battled to bring the increasing ability to turn those digital documents back into paper, and voila, we're here in this room. The history of the last half millennium in 5 minutes. In Gutenberg's day, printing was hailed as both devil and savior, depending on who was doing the labeling. The earliest printed documents, Catholic indulgences, the Gutenberg Bible, and Martin Luther's 95 Theses each had their supporters and their detractors. Today, we in this room continue the same debate, with many who demonize printing as completely unnecessary and others who hail its inevitability. It may sound strange, but I think as Gutenberg showed, there is no activity such as printing. We are never simply printing. We are always taking the steps we believe serve to better grow the leading thinkers of tomorrow, or we are taking the steps necessary to build a career and a life for ourselves, our families, and the institutions we serve. Even Gutenberg recognized that the value of his invention was not in the printing. No one really prints except in service to some higher cause. So it isn't much of a stretch to recognize that we at Pharos are focusing not on printing, but on serving a higher cause. And in so, we join the rest of you in the room. We are helping in our own way to teach the world to live mindfully. At the end of the day, is there anything more important? If you want to be a doctor, a student, a dog trainer, an accountant, a parent, a friend, is there anything more important than paying attention to the world around us, the choices we make, and the impact of those choices on ourselves and on others? In short, living mindfully. We at Pharos do not preach the evils of printing, nor do we embrace the belief that paper is inevitable and the best medium for communication at all times. We believe in mindfulness. To borrow the words from one of our customers, we don't want to stop people from printing. We just want them to think before they do. I hope my thoughts sound a little different than you might expect. We try to think differently, because the fastest path to mediocrity is to think like everybody else. In my remaining few moments, I want to share 6 mindful printing viewpoints that we have picked up along our journey. These are viewpoints we believe will contribute to the future of enterprise printing as we see it, and I will share what they mean for our customers and our partners. First, all true change begins with despair and hope. People resist even change that they like. People prefer a problem that they know to a solution they don't like. Patients who know that smoking is killing them still continue, sometimes to the last day. One company we worked with had mainframes that were set to print out millions of pages of paper, month by month, whether anyone wanted them or not. These computers were set to churn out documents for thousands of employees. We instituted a simple change. We turned off the printer. After all, if you want to know if something is truly valuable, try taking it away. We didn't warn anyone. We simply stopped printing. And I'm betting that many in the room can guess the result. Not one complaint. We told the client that we had good news, bad news, and great news. The good news is that we could save them close to $20,000 a month by stopping the printing. The bad news was that it was too late to recover the last 2 years in which the mainframe had been printing out paper at the rate of close to $250,000. The great news was that now they knew that. And they could start simply and start today and do something about it. The story of organizational printing is much like the frog in the continually heating pan. Institutions have continued to invest in printers and printing until the average organization has one printer for every 2 to 3 employees. One we recently studied had more printers than they had employees. One CFO refused to believe that his institution had a problem until one of his employees came up with a suggestion. He said he would quietly collect the trade trash, those documents at the end of the day that were left on the end of the printer or on tables right next to the printer, and he would quietly stack them in the corner of the CFO's office. It only took a few days before the CFO could no longer meet with employees in his office, before despair set in. The employee then painted a picture of the change that was required, the savings and the opportunity in front of them. And despair moved to hope, and with it the opportunity for change. The lesson is that if you seek change, and if you seek change on your campuses, sometimes you need to create despair and hope where they're needed most. This employee saw something that the CFO did not, and he demonstrated our second viewpoint. Think comprehensively and solve the biggest problem you can. Rarely is the problem that we are working on really what we are working on. We work with a bank that was convinced that printing was not too expensive. After all, even after adding up all of their invoices and costs to print, the total cost of printing did not make the top of their list. But then they took a step back to look at what happens after the paper is printed. The answer? It may cost them 2 cents to 3 cents to print a page, but it costs them 9 cents per page to manage the document after it's printed. The savings for not printing is quite literally 4 times the cost of printing to begin with. Couple this with the risk of security, and their eyes opened to a much larger problem than what they thought they were working on. To put this into another perspective, shortly after I joined Pharos, I was accosted in a presentation much like this one. It was at the National Association of Campus Card Users. And one of the people in the room raised their hand and asked a question. The question was, how can we justify the cost of software, maintenance, servers, and administration, all to support mindful student printing? Before I could answer, because I was still thinking my way through it, one of their colleagues from the other side of the room raised his hand and said he'd like to answer. He related the following story. He said his campus had been using our software for only 8 weeks when their head of procurement received a phone call from the recycling company asking why the recycling company had lost the business with the campus. You see, the recycling company had been visiting the campus 3 times per week to pull away paper from the blue bins, all from the libraries and the labs. Now they were only stopping once every 3 weeks, an 85% reduction in waste. They could only assume someone else had taken over the contract. Many people in this room have similar stories. What is interesting about this particular story, and some of yours as well, is that this campus didn't touch a printer to achieve an 85% reduction in waste. They were able to do this because devices don't print. People do. The problem with common sense is that sometimes it isn't so common. If there's any single discovery that has helped Pharos distinguish ourselves and deliver value to institutions around the world, it is this. Devices don't print. People do. To change printing behavior, you need to change people. Seems to make sense. But when you look at 95% of the service contracts, managed print service contracts, and how we align ourselves on campus, there is not one element related to understanding who is printing, what they're printing, why they are printing, and what can be done about it. The reality is that most of us spending our time in the printing world have been building the capability to print faster, in more places, in higher quality, and in color. That's not bad. Speed, flexibility, quality are good things. However, what I am saying is that if you want to make print mindful, you cannot do it without involving the people who print. At one of our clients, I thought our auditing technology, which sat on all the desktops, had stopped working. One worker we had reviewing quite literally dropped off the network. I assumed incorrectly that they were no longer an employee. We ended up remotely checking on our software, but find nothing obviously wrong. Of course, software bugs are rarely obvious, unfortunately. So we called the employee and asked what was going on. And her reply was that once we turned on secure release, or pull printing, as you may know it, she realized that the institution cared about printing costs, and she stopped printing. Cold turkey, 0 pages. She said, if anything, her productivity had gone up. This is another story that is more common than one might think. People will do what is right if they have the tools and the knowledge. It is sometimes easy to assume that policing printing is needed to eliminate waste or to shift behavior on our campuses. We need to control and stop the printing of flyers and church bulletins, recipe books, holiday cards, party invitations, and we'll save lots of money. Our research and study at hundreds of institutions across many industries suggests otherwise. I'm not going to say that people don't print personal documents at work or on campus. They do. But the savings associated with that level of control is generally not close to being worth the price we pay for demonstrating the lack of caring and respect for our fellow colleagues. After all, it is rarely us that requires the policing. It's them, those people without scruples that care little for enterprise resources. Well, I'm here to say that there aren't that many them out there. And the cost of treating all of us as untrustworthy to go after them just doesn't pay. Many of your campuses that have turned on our Uniprint software, but without policing, many without even charging, have seen this principle time and time again. Print declines 60%, 70%, regardless. There is no incentive for people to stop, but they do anyway. Why? Well, I believe they stop because we have made them aware of the costs. We have given them the tools to do something about it. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about students or whether we're talking about faculty or administration. People will do what is right if they have the tools and the knowledge. We have found very few customers who have regretted starting with the assumption that people will do what is right when we make it known and make it simple. This is one reason why we do not encourage deploying our strongest control policies. The cost outweighs the benefits. And it seems to make the days go by just a little bit better for everyone when we assume that we are all sitting on the same side of the table. Solving comprehensive printing problems is tough enough without having to battle end users. After all, printing is a pain in the neck for IT professionals. Many of us in this room are IT professionals. We've had the blessing of seeing dramatic changes in our chosen line of work over the years. During my 4 years at college, I migrated from writing programs using punch cards to time-sharing mainframes to VAX minis to Unix clusters in 4 years. Now, I know I'm dating myself. I started my computing career in about 20 BC. That's before cloud. Computing is not stopping. That is one of the reasons I believe many in this room enjoy our work. It takes a commitment to a mindset of discovery and continually learning for us to maintain our relevance in this industry. Let me contrast the computing change in the last 25 years with the printing change. PostScript, PCL, print servers, printer drivers, all 20-year-old technology. One client told us it takes 6 departments to secure a printer and get it running on their network. Printers don't speak the same language from different vendors and sometimes even from the same vendor. One of our customers shared that it was their PC policy, their procurement policy, to go to RFP 3 to 4 times per year. They had qualified 3 suppliers. The PCs were commoditized, and they didn't care from one quarter to the next which supplier they used. So they went to bid, and they got the best price that they could for the next few months. This enabled their suppliers to be constantly seeking to win the contract. And if their supplier lost the contract, it was not years, it was merely 3 to 4 months before they had an opportunity to apply and win the business again. Their printers and their MFPs, however, were purchased every 5 years, en masse, as a fleet, and they dreaded the process. I asked him if they did not find the MFPs and the printers similarly commoditized to the PCs, and he said that they did find them similarly commoditized. So I asked him why the difference. At first, he didn't have an answer. He had to think about it. And then he related the following. If a PC breaks, we don't bother trying to fix it for an employee. We simply bring them another, and they're up and running in about 15 to 20 minutes from our time of showing up. If we buy a printer, it can take us days to complete, as we need to touch print servers, desktops, user training, etc. The PCs we fix in the basement in our spare time. The printers, we pay a premium to have them fixed immediately, within hours of us logging an issue. And they get fixed on the floor, in front of our end users. Once we have a fleet working, we don't like to change it. The reality is that the cost of supporting and updating printing environments is expensive for IT, for procurement, and for end users. And it doesn't need to be. It just is. A few years ago, after hearing this customer's story, I returned to our development team in New Zealand, and I asked them if, knowing what they know now, they would design printing to work like it does today. They didn't think long before answering. Absolutely not. We would not design it the way it is today. So I said, good. Go design printing the way it should be. You will be seeing the beginning of their work while you're here the next day and a half. Take a look at our mobile printing application. In it, you will find the roots of our next generation of products, designed to make printing simple, secure, and infinitely flexible. In the coming months, we will continue to deliver new products, features, and extensions, all aimed at making print the way we believe it should be. And if you have ideas, please share them with us. Because the smartest person in the room is not the one speaking. In fact, it isn't a person at all. The smartest person in the room is the community. Now, I believe that Pharos has some pretty bright people, including our Kiwi founders who introduced the world to the path of mindful printing over 20 years ago at the University of Auckland. They did so without knowing where it would lead. Many institutions and organizations are only awakening now to the reality that there's an alternative to habitual printing. Many of you in this room have been early adopters, hence 550 years of experience. Printing for students has been one of the first areas to embrace and tackle the challenge of habitual printing. But Pharos did not learn and design in a vacuum. What we develop and what we share with all of you represents what we discover together. The smartest person in the room isn't a person at all. The smartest person in the room is the community. Each of you either had, coming into this conference or received at registration, an account in our online community. While here, we will have some fun and award some prizes for community participation. We're doing that not just to collect email addresses. We already have those. We're pushing our community because the mind of the community will trump any individual. And Pharos has the largest, brightest, and most experienced community of print professionals in the world. So let's find a way to tap that gold together. Learn from your experience and share that experience with others. Leaders don't have some kind of third eye to see things that the rest of us don't. They have a way of looking at the same world and seeing something different, something a little bigger, a little more comprehensive than the rest. They choose to live life with just a little bit more awareness. There are many leaders in this room. It has been your voices that has impacted Pharos, our growth, your institutions, and started a trend that is now growing and expanding around the world. Whether we choose, well, I believe that all of you have chosen to be here because you recognize that the printing world is changing. And whether we choose to let that printing world change or whether we choose to take hold and manage that change, define that change, is up to us. Gutenberg did not foresee the impact of his invention on the world, but it may have been the single most significant discovery since the wheel and writing itself. His invention brought artists, literati, scientists, scholars together to usher in the modern age. Information could finally, for the first time, be captured, copied cheaply, and transported around the world. Gutenberg helped to unlock the knowledge of community. No one knew at the time the consequence of his efforts, the impact on politics, religion, science, education, the rapid expansion of economics, mass production, flexible manufacturing, material science, paper production, and so much more. In the era of digital publishing, we stand at about the same time as Gutenberg when he first published his Bible, 17 years into the life of the printing press. We stand at about the same time as Thomas Watson, then chairman of IBM, when he said, "I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers." We're at the beginning, and I can't think of a more fun place to be. It may be hard for each of us in this room to view ourselves on the scale of a Johannes Gutenberg or a Martin Luther, but it's history that built their names, reputations, and their contributions. Each of them brought to the world what you and I can bring to ours: a mindset of discovery and a yearning to bring commitment, caring, respect, and openness to everything that we do. Our company passion is to bring our deepest caring, commitment, respect, and open sharing to all of you. This conference is one opportunity to do just that. Our challenge is to serve the world by making printing more mindful, and in so doing, to deliver and expand on the social, environmental, and financial benefits that many of you have already begun realizing in your own institutions. Our vision is to be a catalyst to making print the way it should be: simple, secure, and infinitely flexible. For all of these, we need you. We need each other. So I thank you again for joining us, for the role that you have played in our past and the role that you will play in our future. You help us learn. You help us stay mindful. And we're committed to doing the same for you. So I hope you enjoy the conference. And let's go discover together.